Hi, my name is Ken Asselson. I wrote the Microbiome prescription website, and today I wanted to show you the beginning of a bit of work in progress. There's more work to be done, but what's there is interesting. As some of you may know from following me for the last few years, I've been busy racking my brains trying to discover relationships in the microbiome. I've gone through all of the classic commonly used nowadays machine learning techniques, random forest, Bayesian, etc., and unfortunately had very little success. It just doesn't produce good results. They produce some results, but gut feeling is now something is wrong. It's not, we're not understanding the data well enough. The result, which was when the light started showing, was when the cutoff maltop ranges of abnormal showed up, and from there it has cascaded into a variety of other things because I now have a specific model, a transformation of the raw data, which suddenly produces strong, good results. On one of the same transformation, when I transform the raw data, is when we take that transformation, look at people who have symptoms on it, we end up getting some nice results, as I'm going to show you. Here is the symptoms with bacterial relationships. You find whatever the symptoms are here. How many relationships were found? The relationships are relationships which has a probability of 0.01 or less. In other words, unlikely to be purely random. And I look at those numbers and sort of go gasp. I mean, that's what I could dream of, and suddenly it's there. Now, I also have something called a z-score. Those of you who've done stats know what it means. Basically, the higher the z-score, the more likely it is to have an actual relationship rather than random chance. To get on this list, the z-score has to be 2.52, if I remember right, or higher. So we can see that they go up to high numbers, and if we click on that one, we see highest value is 55. That's a massively high score. In other words, there is a pretty strong relationship has been discovered with at least one bacteria. Now, if we go down and take a look at one, I'm going to do a shorter one, which is high altitude intolerance. If I click 3 on it, we now have the bacteria listed in alphabetical order of what it is, the genus, the ranks. Now, at this point in time, I should explain we have high, we have low, and we have middle peak. Actually, it's much more. Basically, we have the transformation converts things into a what's called uniform distribution. And with the uniform distribution, what we may find is that there's a clustering at a set of values somewhere along the line, not at the top, not at the bottom, which are the traditional things people assume is going to happen. You have too much of something, you have too little of something. Sometimes it actually is a combination of things, so that you have a bunch of things slightly over the typical and a bunch of things under the typical, and that combination and the interactions between it and all the enzymes produced by and all the metabolites produced, etc., causes the condition to occur. So for clarity, especially after my first run through, I have classified them as high, low, or middle peak, just so that when we look at actual numbers corresponding from your sample, you don't get hyper confused, which is what happened when I first looked at it and said, wait, something is wrong here. So you go and you see here, and if you see z-score, we see which one is the most likely to be middle peak, or we have low of just one, middle peak, low, low, low. We have none of the items are high in terms of this list, and we can go and actually take a look at the full list, and we find that only when we start getting to things, here we have a specific thing which tends to be high, and that's where things are. It may be that there's only a few people who have this bacteria, not everybody has it, but if you have it and it's high, you have high altitude sickness. So these are candidates. You may have none of them, but if you have them, the value which you have of them has an impact. Okay, so that's basically it. Tells you what to look at, etc. Now, what I'm going to do is, this is before log on happened. You see the magic word, please log on. Okay, now I'm going to log in with the biome site login, simply because it's nice and easy there. I go to 16 samples. And now when I go back to Explorer and look here, we see the same thing as before. We can go in and let's find something. Let's go back to where we were. High altitude, high altitude intolerance there. And now when we click View, you notice up here at the top, your samples here. There's a stack of different samples here, and you can change the different samples. Automatically detects that you're logged in and will automatically select the first sample. So you can go in, let's take a middle one here. Numbers are automatically recomputed, and you can see where it is. Here we have a middle peak. Your actual percentile is 51, and if you hover over here, you will get the z-score, which is how close you are to the values which everybody who has high altitude intolerance have, how close you are. In this case, 0.08. If you go down, we find 1.5. It's further away. If you go to very weak, it's 2.28. Chances are, you know, a really good match. It's supposed to be low. You're up here 76. You're a good distance away. And most of the mathematics behind it I have hidden, apart from making a z-score available. Like this one is a very strong, and so you can go in there and you can take a look at and see your one, and we have 0.025 middle peak, which actually makes sense. So it's not too high or too low. Here we have a case of very strong, we have high, and the distance away isn't that much. Now the distance of these values are dependent on how many people have this particular one, which is why you'll find the numbers jumping all over the place. As the number of samples increase, then the accuracy will go up and you will get a better result. So it's all statistics, all odds. Okay, so that's basically it. Let's go back again, and we have a number of relationships, highest value, and what I should do is toss in a number showing how many people have this particular symptoms. Basically, this lots of statistical fun and games, and let's not get into that at the moment, but basically you see the relationships. You can go and compare your sample to the sample, to the pattern seen with this particular sample, and go from there. The prediction aspect, the end product aspect, except the enzyme, the cake, enzyme product, modular stuff are all to be done items, but at the moment we have a pure bacterial one, and we found a very good one. Some items are a single item, like just one relationship found there. Moldar only 5. So if you, let's go down here. Let's go over long-term antibiotics, and we have here what tends to have. One particularly tends to go high. 2 other tends to go low, and then we have some middle peak, another one that goes high. And whether or not you're a match or not a match, in this case you have a strong match for one, and everything else you either a weak match or non-match, which means that this sample is unlikely to be somebody who has long-term antibiotics. Again, it gives you bits and bits of information. The aggregation of the information into a single value, are you a match or good match, bad match, or in between match, is to be determined. There's more stats I have to work on to get comfortable with that prediction. Okay, that's it. Have fun.